Very good morning, all of you. Today I am going to start the new chapter of macroeconomics, that is determination of income and employment, popularly known as aggregate demand and aggregate supply chapter. This is very important chapter for your exam point of view. This alone chapter consists means approx 12 marks question will be asked from this chapter. So this chapter is very important. This chapter is actually divided into three parts. I have given the synopsis in very short. Detailed synopsis will be given through the video when I'll teach you the each and every term in detail. If you see the synopsis properly, you will find these are three parts. In the first part, we are going to understand the basic concepts. In the second part, that is very important for the exam point of view, in which we have to understand the sum of the approaches to determine the aggregate demand and its equilibrium. And the third part, we are going to solve the problems arise due to the aggregate demand and aggregate supply. So you are going through all the synopsis and note down the properly in your notes copy and understand the overview. Today in this video, I am going to show you this just key terms of the book, of the chapter, so that you can understand what we are going to study in this chapter and what are the main highlights, what are the main important things we need to know. Before going into the chapter, let's understand the key terms, which is very important for the exam point of view also and for the understanding the chapters also. Once you understand these key terms, you will be able to understand the chapter properly. These key terms, why I am teaching to you, because these key terms are those keywords which I will use while teaching the chapter. You must be familiar about these terms, so that while teaching you are not going to be confused, or I need not to tell you again time and again. So here let's understand the key terms of aggregate demand and aggregate supply. The first term is break-even point. You are already knowing. If you are not knowing, just understand this is the point in which any two object is always become equal. This term we will use several times in this chapter. You need to know the meaning of it. Break-even point is the point which is popularly we used to use in business, that no profit and no loss point, or where any two objects becomes equal to each other. That monotonous point, that point is recommended as break-even point. Okay, so if we are going in a proper detailed definition, it will be refers to the point at which consumption is equal to national income. This definition is in relation of this chapter only. Okay, a previous definition you are going to see here, I have explained the break-even point is that point which shows no profit, no loss, or where the two economic objects are equal to each other. Here the word two economic objects are equal to each other. These can be anything, either demand and supply, either consumption and investment, either saving and income, either consumption and income. Any kind of economic object can be equal. Wherever it is equal, that point is considered as break-even point. So that's why as per this chapter, the definition you are going to write down, the break-even point refers to the point at which consumption is equal to national income. The second term is disposable income. Some of you are knowing the disposable income meaning, but many of you may have not. This term is actually been used in this concept in this chapter. Disposable income is popularly that kind of income which we are having left in our hand, in the person's hand, after deduction of taxes. Any kind of taxes or any kind of liability which we have to pay to the government, when it is deducted from the gross income, that part is known as disposable income. Okay, so here the proper definition you can write down: the disposable income refers to the income from all the sources which is available to household for spending on consumption and saving. Here this definition is related from this chapter. Okay, the concept from this chapter which we are using, that's why we need to understand the definition as per the chapter. But in general, what we call disposable income is that income which is available for the consumption after tax deduction or after all the liabilities been paid to the government. Okay. Now the third most important term is autonomous consumption. Autonomous word we have studied in other chapter also. If you remember balance of payment account, I have taught you autonomous. Here the autonomous consumption means that minimum level of consumption which is needed for survival. Here autonomous means that minimum value, that minimum requirement of the household, that if they have nothing to spend to buy the food, even after their liability, their need, their intensity arise for the consumption of that commodity, so that basic intensity, that basic need which is compulsory for them is autonomous consumption. See the proper definition. A definition is refers to the consumption at zero level of national income. It means the person, if they are not having money, zero money they have, even after they need further consumption, minimum requirement for the consumption is autonomous consumption. This consumption can be, this minimum requirement can be fulfilled either by the past saving or any kind of sale of assets or any kind of commodity if they are selling it. Without earning whatever the minimum level of requirement of a person is known as autonomous consumption. Here this term we will use several times in the book, in the chapter, because this autonomous consumption is the basic key terms of the concept of ADAS approach. So we will need to know what is called autonomous consumption. I am telling you again, this is that minimum requirement of the consumption which a person need even if he is not earning or even if he is not having any source of income. Okay, that is called autonomous consumption. You are going to understand this concept very carefully. Now the next is propensity. Propensity is actually represent the capacity, the ability of a person. Here we can say the definition, this is the habit of behaving in particular way or tendency or a capacity of economy. If we say that propensity of consume or propensity of save or propensity of reaction or propensity of whatever the term we are adding the propensity before, it means we are talking about their capacity, their tendency or their behavior on that particular things. For example, if we are going to see what propensity to consume, it means the person's capacity to consume at different income level. Okay. Similarly, if we talk about propensity to save, it means person's capacity, person's tendency or person's behavior to save the money at different level of income. So what is the meaning of propensity here? Propensity means your capacity or your behavior at the different income level, or your intensity or your how much you are having the tendency to save or tendency to consume or tendency to invest. Wherever we add this term propensity, it means, in simple word we can say, it means behavior, it means capacity, it means tendency of a person. Okay, so now understand the another most important term from this chapter, that is ex ante. Ex ante, wherever the word you will find in front of any of the economic term, it means that we are talking about which is planned, which is actually desired or it is intended. It means, like, suppose we are adding any ex ante word in front of any economic terms like consumption, or we are adding in front of saving or investment, like for example ex ante saving, it means we are talking about the planned saving, how much we have planned or how much we desired or how much we have intention to plan. Means it is not actual happen, it is just desired one, or thus just a assumption, or we can say just a approximate a person do. The ex ante word is in economics is refers to that which is planned one. Similarly, ex post. Ex post means those, if this term is being added in front of it before any economic term, that meaning changed totally from the previous one. It means that actually incurred, means that is actually realized. Suppose ex post we are adding in front of saving, it means ex post saving means actual saving realized. Okay, but ex ante saving means actual not this is the desired one, the planned saving means which we have planned to save. Okay, so did you understand the definition difference between ex ante and ex post? Ex ante refers to anything which is planned before, anything which we have approximate or which we have desired to have. Like ex ante saving means we are planning to save. How much depends. Similarly, ex post which is actual realized, actually happened in the economy. Okay, so ex post saving means actually how much we have saved. Okay, both terms we are going to see, the both terms are related in this chapter through the context of saving and economic investment only, saving and investment. So now the next term is voluntary unemployment. This is again important topic in this chapter we will study, and many times I will use this term. Voluntary unemployment means the person is able-bodied and but not willing to work. Simple. He is able-bodied but not willing to work means the person voluntarily means he himself with his agreement he is unemployed. Willingly he is unemployed. Okay. So if we are going to see the proper definition as per the chapter will be, it refers to a situation when a person is unemployed because he is not willing to work at existing wage rate. Okay, you are going to write the definition exactly as per the book which is given. So what is called voluntary unemployment? It refers to a situation when a person is unemployed because he is not willing to work at existing wage rate. Just opposite you will find involuntary unemployment. Involuntary means person is not willing to unemployed. He want to do work but he is not getting work, means he is able-bodied but not getting work to do anything. So that person will be involuntary unemployed. No one wants to be unemployed. But if the person is unemployed even after he is willing to work, that person will be known as involuntary unemployed. So whenever we talk about unemployment in the country, we are actually talking about involuntary unemployment, not the voluntary unemployment. Okay, so the definition as per the book, what we are going to write down: involuntary unemployment refers to a situation when a person is able, willing to work at existing wage rate but they do not get work. Okay. Now the next term is effective demand. This question, actually this 1 mark question was asked in the current and means recent examination. What do you mean by effective demand? We have studied demand. We have studied the concept of demand. We know the demand and quantity demand. Now this is a new term, effective demand. Effective demand means which is that demand which motivate a person to buy anything, and just a real expenditure which they are doing, that is effective demand. Means we can say demand which represent real motive to purchase and pay. Okay, the proper definition, if you are going to see, the definition will be, it refers to that level of aggregate demand which becomes effective because it is equal to aggregate supply. This is the totally economic definition. Means that total demand which is met by corresponding supply, means whatever the demand we have created and exactly in the similar quantity if we have supply, means that point will refers to effective demand. But in very simple manner, if we want to know the meaning of effective demand, is that demand which represent real reason for a person to spend and buy something. Okay, so that is called effective demand. Now this term you are going to understand from the chapter thoroughly. Before starting the chapter, I must recommend and I must hope from you all student that you are going to understand entire these terms thoroughly. Okay, now the most important term I'm going to explain, that is paradox of thrift. This is very important, and this term always comes for 4 mark or either for 3 mark, not more than that. But it is very important concept. You need to understand what do you mean by paradox of thrift. Paradox of thrift is related to the saving. Normal concept in the economy when it happens, why we say that paradox of thrift is going on, it's related to when a person starts saving more than the spending. Means entire people, as a macro sense we talk, entire people when they start saving more as compared to spending, that phenomena is known as paradox of thrift. Okay, in detail if you are going to understand this concept, it was propounded by Mr. J.M. Keynes. The term thrift which we used, it means actually saving, and the paradox of thrift shows that how an economy is as a whole is able to save more out of its current income. When the economy is started doing saving from the current income, the result will be lower saving in the economy. It's just a contradiction. You may have a question, when we are starting saving, how it will decrease the total saving of the economy. Suppose if all the people in the country are making an effort to save more, then the total saving of the community will not increase. On the contrary, they will decrease. This is called paradox of thrift. I'm telling you with this example, try to understand the example clearly. The examples which we are talking about, when people start saving more instead of spending. Suppose we all people here in the, suppose in a city around 10,000 people are living and they all started saving than the spending. In response to growing concern about a recession, they actually make the recession worse. What they are doing, they all are starting saving, they all are not spending. It means no one, the economy circulation trade cycle will not perform. Reason, as we know that one person expenditure is another person's income. Naturally, when we are going to spend, the other person will earn. Here what happened, all the people are starting saving, means other person will not have source of income. Suppose here individual A decide to save more by reducing his consumption, then income of B will also be lesser and the individual will in turn in the spending lesser. So if this circulation, this cycle continue, what will happen? Entire individual in the economy decide to save more, than economy, the income received by each individual will be less and overall income will fall. So lower the saving of the economy and lower the condition of the economy. So paradox thrift says that when the entire economy starts saving more than the spending, the total saving of the nation decreases. Okay, so this was total key terms which we have to study in this chapter, and that is very important. Out of this, some of the important topic I have taken out and shown you to understand. Kindly make notes and understand all the concept. If any doubt, any problems, any kind of confusion, you are free to ask. You can comment in the comment box, and we just wait for the details, descriptions, detailed elaboration of the chapter of aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Thank you. Wish you all the best.